Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Quick video today on my new Redcat Gen 9. Show you guys how to install the stickers on the interior. Redcat gives you a sticker sheet that has some floor mats and some door cards, and to try to get at it through the top cage is really nearly impossible because these are the type of stickers that once they touch the Lexan, they are stuck. If you try to peel them off again, they're going to rip. So you pretty much have one shot at doing this. So you want to have full access to the inside. Also, if you're going to install the light kit, you need to get to the back side of the dash for the little lights that illuminate the dash. So that's another time you're going to want to remove this. So I'll show you guys. It can be a little bit, intimidating when you look at the bottom of this and you see just a ton of screws. This body is multiple pieces. The entire windscreen and side vent windows here are one piece. The outside shell and the hood is one piece, and then the entire Lexan interior is another piece. So let me show you guys how to do that, and then afterward I'll show you what else I have going on with this so far. I'm gonna have some videos in the future, some running video and some modifications as I go with this, but my plan was to kind of do this up as more of a like a class one kind of, if I enter a competition, I'd like to have something I could run in class one. I didn't want to go full on with a whole custom class one build. And from what I understand, they changed some of the rules around where you can run a Lexan body. So I'm pretty sure this would qualify to be able to run in a class one comp. So, and even if I'm not entering a comp, I just wanted to have something like really scale to just go out and run. It's something different. The smaller tires, the smaller wheels and tires make it a little bit more of a challenge on most terrain. So I think that kind of adds to the scale realism of driving this rig. So I had it out once already. You may see a couple scratches here and there, and I really like it. It has to, you really kind of have to take it in the right terrain. You can't have anything too extreme when you're going with a little bit smaller wheel and tire combo. But overall, I really like it. I'll show you toward the end of the video if you want to stick around. I'll show you what I got going on with this, but for now, let me show you guys how to do how to access the interior, what screws you need to remove and which ones you don't, all right? Hey guys, so to get the interior out, what we need to do is a couple things here. You need to remove these two top screws from either side of the windscreen on the top. You need to remove both of the windshield wipers, and then you can remove the entire windscreen, right? Which is kind of cool, you can run it without a windscreen. Then, kind of, don't mind, mine's kind of half apart here. You do need to take off your door handles and your mirrors on both sides. Then if you flip the body over, you need to remove the 4 screws that go into the roll cage at the rear. And that is it just to get the interior out. Then what happens is you can shift, kind of slide, pull the entire outer body to the back, and it's just going to slide off. You don't need to remove any of these screws from this rear brace or anything else. And you could just take this and set it aside. Then to further remove the cage here, you need to remove, there's a screw on either side here, that just goes in from the front. There are 2 more screws here that you need to take out from underneath that go into the dash. And these are already out in the back. You took those out already. So once you get these 2 front screws out, you'll see this is still somewhat attached. The entire dash and cage is going to come out as one piece. So there's a little pin, if you can see that. There's a little pin here that fits into the side support rail here. So you need to remove this pin, just pull it forward, and that's it. The entire dash, pedals, wheel assembly comes out. And then to do your stickers for the interior, the floor mats are easy from here. You have access to all the floor mats. These, there's a lot of guys that don't know what these are. These stickers here are your door card stickers. So you just need to remove your door handle and window crank, and just be aware that this whole side panel is going to fall off when you do that. These are the only 2 things holding it on right now. So just keep track, do one side at a time, and you'll keep track of where these go to. Put your door card on, you just gotta punch a little hole. You can do it from the outside with just something sharp. Punch a little hole through the sticker, put those back on, and that's it. Assembly is kind of in reverse order here. you can kind of just line this up. Line up your pins, do that side, do that. Don't forget, like I did, don't forget to put them back in before you assemble everything else, because you can just shoot these in much easier when it's out of the vehicle. So, and another note I will mention to you guys, pretty much out of the box, when I, just from putting this body on and off a couple times, maybe it was a little bit misaligned, but actually split. I don't know if you can see it here. I got a split down this entire corner, right? So I don't know if it was just a weak point, maybe the body wasn't made properly, and I started looking closer at it, and I noticed I have another split going down all the way over here. So I know my experience with the Gen 8 in the past, the Lexan was pretty weak and it tended to split pretty easily, especially in cold weather. But I mean, this is in my workshop where it's not that cold, so I don't know why. I think it may have been a defect. I did send an email out, see what I get. But in the meantime, I would recommend this. I did a little bit of E6000. I just like put like a nice smear of E6000 in all the corners, like decently thick, nothing crazy thick, maybe a 1/16 of an inch in the corner. Let it tack up, and then I put this Gorilla Tape pretty much in all the corners, just for some extra reinforcement. And so far, I have driven it, I've hit it into a few rocks, and it's held up. But anyway, I'd recommend doing that before you drive this thing, because you know, apparently it's weak. So now, with the body here, you can kind of slot the rear on. This plastic panel is going to sit under the blue Lexan portion here. So you kind of just slide the back in, and then the front sits down like that. And then you can reassemble, you know, reverse order. Put your windscreen back on, your windshield wipers, and so forth. And then don't forget the screws from underneath. So that's it, guys. Pretty straightforward. If you did have to get to the interior for any other modifications, that's how it's done. So again, to recap, step one, take off your windscreen wipers, set them aside, take off the little screw here on either side. The entire windscreen will come off, set it aside, take off your mirrors, both of which of mine are broken already. Take off your door handle. So there's 2 screws on either mirror, 1 screw on the door handle. Then you can flip this over, and you need to remove 1, 2, 3, 4 that go down into the cage. And that's it. It should, then you could just literally take the entire outer body, slide it backward and up, and it comes off. Then what you need to do is to remove, like I showed you earlier, to remove the cage from the interior. With this out, this entire piece is going to be out of the truck. You can then remove 1, 2, 3, 4 that are going in that direction, because they are hard to get to. You can do it at this point, but you kind of need an Allen key with like the ball end on it, so you can do it at an angle. But it's just do it while it's out, and then don't forget, like I did, don't forget to put them back in before you assemble everything else, because you can just shoot these in much easier when it's out of the vehicle. So okay, so that takes care of your stickers on your interior. So hopefully that worked out for you. Let me just show you what else I got going on in this build so far. I did change over the stock motor and ESC to a Hobbywing Fusion Pro 2300 kV. And I have the battery. I'm running a 2200 3S battery. I have it mounted on the slider here just for balance, really. Originally the ESC was mounted here, but I removed that, of course, because the Fusion has the ESC built into the motor, which makes it really nice, kind of cuts down on some of the wiring mess. And then just to kind of balance out the vehicle, I mounted the battery down here instead of in the center. And it does kind of help. I think I just kind of weighed either tire, front tire on either side. And I think this side is now maybe like 40 grams heavier than this side. So it's very close. I think when I get the lighting kit and I mount the lighting controller on this side, it's really going to kind of balance out the vehicle. So it's something just to think about when you are kind of adding or removing accessories or batteries and stuff, just to kind of keep a balance left to right on the vehicle. It's going to help with those extreme kind of side hill moments. You kind of want it to be as balanced as possible. So another thing I'll mention, when you change over, if you're going to run the Fusion Pro, because the Fusion Pro has this little kind of like a CNC cut in, almost like a little bit of a heat sink that sticks out a little bit. Its overall diameter is a tiny bit larger than the stock motor. And what I noticed if I was running the stock pinion gear, which is a 11 tooth, the motor, in order to get the mesh right, the motor actually hit into the panhard mount on the chassis, and I couldn't really, I could kind of jam it and really force it over and get the gear mesh close, but I think it was kind of, cocking the whole assembly over to the side a little bit, and I wasn't crazy about that. So what I did was I went up 2 teeth on the pinion, and I went with a 13, and that just gave me the spacing where the motor could rotate a little bit away from the panhard mount, and everything worked out fine. And the smoothness you get with the Fusion can easily, and the power and torque you get with the Fusion Pro, you could easily pull a slightly taller gear. So I have no complaints about the gearing, especially because I went down to the smaller wheel size, the Class 1 wheel size, which are 4.2s compared to like a 4.75, which is the standard. So it's good. I think the gearing is probably about back to stock with these smaller wheels on it. So I'm happy with that. Still running the stock servo. I did bump up the BEC in the Fusion up to 7.4 volts. So I'm getting, full power. I think this could run up to 8.4 even, but that's maxed out on the Fusion's BEC. So you'd have to run an external BEC if you really wanted to bump it up. But honestly, the power on this servo is really good at 7.4. So that's another benefit of ditching the stock electronics, is you can bump that up to slightly higher power. Just mounted my little power switch for the Fusion over here. I did notice a couple little snags with the 2-speed shifting. I'm sure a lot of guys have run into that. It's a little bit notchy. I'm thinking it's going to break in with use. And a lot of guys are complaining that the stock servo is too weak. I don't think that's necessarily it, because it does have a servo saver built onto the 2-speed shifter. So I like that, because what that helps with is, say you're just like stopped and you go to shift into high gear, your gears might not really be meshed, right, for it to just fall into place and immediately shift into high gear. So if you didn't have a saver on there and it was just trying to jam those gears together, it wasn't moving, you could possibly burn out your servo. So having a servo on there allows the servo itself to satisfy its full movement. It'll just go to its end stop where it thinks it is, and then it's really the spring and the saver that is kind of just waiting for you to move the truck slightly one direction or the other, so the gears line up and it snaps in place. So I like running a saver on any type of like 2-speed shifter, or sometimes even dig. It tends to work a little bit better if you have the proper servo saver set up with a good amount of tension on it. So I think the notchiness we're experiencing with the Gen 9 is really just the internal mechanism. And I think it's just going to kind of break in over time. Maybe if you did have it apart, I would maybe take a look at how those mesh together, and maybe you can kind of chamfer the edges of whatever mechanism. I haven't taken it apart yet, so I don't know exactly what it looks like in there, but maybe you could slightly file them down and make them a little smoother engagement. But what I notice is that if you just give a little bit of throttle while you're shifting, not too much, but just barely a little bit of creeping while you're shifting, it engages. It might hesitate for a second, but it will engage better than if you try to do it under power or just at a standstill and then kind of goose it. It's going to not really line up right. So that should take care of that. I did play around with some shock angles a little bit. The shocks, you can't, what's kind of annoying, you can't move the shocks. And the front shock, I moved up to the top row of holes in the center. I wanted to move it to the back a little bit, but the collar interferes with the screw there, and it kind of kicked them to the side, and they were binding up. So you really, if you're running them in the top position, which would lower the vehicle a little bit, you'd pretty much just have the center. I do have some shock keys that I might experiment with, which would allow me, they're just little like mounting tabs that would allow me to mount. Let me grab some real quick, actually. So this is a shock key. They just call it a key because it's shaped like a key, like a house key. And you just bolt this, you remove your shock, bolt this to the tower, and then it gives you all of these options for mounting your shock. And you can really angle your shock back. And what that does is kind of just change the leverage ratio over your shock. It'll allow the vehicle to sit a little bit lower, and also kind of softens it up a little bit, which I might consider experimenting with, just because I did put the smaller wheels on, and I wouldn't mind if it sat a tiny bit lower. So I did this on my Gen 8, and it really transformed the way that thing crawled. It worked excellent with these. You do have to, if you're going to run the shocks back at more of an angle, you do have to trim out some of this opening in the fender. And on the rear shocks, I would actually angle them forward you know, I don't know. It doesn't make a huge difference, I guess. It just made more sense on my other truck to angle it forward. Um, Other than that, this thing is mostly stock, and I ran it, and it worked out great. I really like. My buddy had his Gen 8 Axe Edition out at the same time, and you could really tell how much a benefit it is to have this vehicle a little bit shorter, especially if we put them side by side. His rear bumper, even though he had his rear bumper slammed in as far as it could go with that body, his rear bumper stuck out like almost an inch further than on this truck. So your kind of approach and departure angles are really limited with the Gen 8, stock Gen 8. And with this, I noticed it was much better. The bumpers do still hit a lot. If you're used to driving a vehicle like a Cap or something else that doesn't have full width bumpers on it, it's a little bit of a challenge. But I expected that going into it. Like I said, I wanted more of a scale driving experience. And this is it, especially with the slightly smaller tires. Now you might be saying, why would you go with smaller tires? It's mostly just, it's a scale look. And honestly, I did some measuring. I had a ride height gauge, and I did some measuring. So I measured down from the lowest point, just to screw under the portal axle here, and it was only a 5 millimeter difference from the stock tires to these tires. And, you know, so it only lowers the axles 5 millimeters, and with them being portals, you do get a lot of clearance to begin with. So it's really not that much of a detriment to the handling and the drivability of this. And the other benefit is, and I would like to do this as an experiment, bring the stock wheels with me and just put the stock wheels on, find the most extreme side hill that this could do, and then put these wheels and tires on and try it again. Because I guarantee you, this lowers the center of gravity, and it's probably going to be able to side hill better with these tires. So I might try that one day, and maybe I'll make a little video. But there's some benefits. There's definitely benefits to running more of a scale size, smaller wheel and tire. So that's pretty much it. The other thing I did, almost forgot, it's kind of important. Portal axle weights. I picked up this DKKY, something like that, off of Amazon. They were like $20. And they fit perfect. The machining is really nice. I will put a link to them below. They're nice, and they on the outsides they have a little chamfered edge that's brass. These are full brass machined, and they're black though. They are coated with a black coating, so I think it looks cool because you look from underneath, you can't really, doesn't stand out and be like, hey, there's a big, giant chunk of brass under a truck that's supposed to be scale looking. So I really like them. They do fit. You can run them on all four corners. They will fit. I know that because because this thing looks like a shoebox, and you don't know, like, what's the front, what's the back. I don't know. I may have had a beer or two. I'm not sure. When I was installing them, I installed one on the front, and then I swung the truck around or something. And when I did the other one, I put it on the back, and I went out and drove it, and I didn't even realize it. And I'm looking at it. We were out in the trails, and I'm like, what the hell? Where's my portal weight? And I was like, oh, I had one on the front and then one on the rear here, like an idiot. But I corrected it, so I know they fit. You could run them on all four corners if you want, if that's what you're after. I was after a little bit more weight up front, and only on the front. So, for what it's worth, though, you can get all four for like $50. So pretty good deal. I'll link those down below. Other than that, haven't messed with anything else too much. I think overall, this thing is a really good performing machine. Let me grab the body here. Slap this on. I like the body mount system. You just have to be a little careful in the back. You don't want to put this on crooked. It could really jam up the Lexan back here and crack it. But the mirrors, not good. Not a good design. The Redcat Gen 8 had some of the best mirrors I had seen. I drove my Gen 8 through anything and everything, scraped the crap out of everything, and the mirrors held up perfect because they folded in and they swiveled a little bit, so nothing was really going to rip them off. They held up great. These are terrible. I mean, one of mine was broken out of the box. They're just a rigid mirror on the side of a cross. Literally the first thing you're going to hit when you take it out into the trail. Horrible idea to change over to this. The door handles, I don't know, they might hold up. They're kind of, has a little pin in the front. They're a little smooth. We'll see. But the mirrors need something different. So I may either go to a Gen 8 style or pick up like a Traxxas folding mirror. I think it definitely needs to be folding at the very least. So that's that. I'm probably going to do some kind of bumpers. I might do Apparently, Reefs makes a front bumper mount that has a built-in servo winch mount. And I have a Reef servo winch that I think I'm going to install in there. And then I'll find a different front bumper that has a Fairlead on it, throw a winch on there. I think that's going to be cool. So stay tuned, guys, if you want to see more on the Gen 9 or any of the other projects I got going on or coming up. And thanks for tuning in. Consider subscribing, give me a thumbs up, hit me up with some questions, comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. Later.